Phil Foust, our guest on the program today. Phil, the Republican candidate for Marion County Prosecutor. So we're talking about what he'd like to see in the job, as well as crime and violence in the city of Annapolis. Phil, obviously, crime knows no boundaries. I remember this was like 20 years ago. Some folks had committed a crime over on the far west side of town, and the sheriff's deputy was taken to the jail in Danville. And they're like, "Sir, you've taken us the wrong way. Like, no, son, you committed a crime in Hendricks County, or whether it's Hancock or Johnson, Boone, Hamilton, you name it. Uh, how can the Marion County prosecutor impact what takes place outside of Marion County? I've been seeing a lot of social media posts by a lot of Donut County mayors who haven't been necessarily happy with the way things have been going here in the city.
Right. Well, I found of the different comments that I saw, kind of the most uh, damning was from Hendricks County Prosecutor Lauren Delp, um, and when he laid out uh, the statistics over the last about 15, 20 years, and uh, it really tells a story that is not flattering for our county. Um, I think that this goes again, dovetails with what we were just talking about here, which is that public safety requires a lot of teamwork. And one of the first things that I'm going to do when I'm prosecutor is work to repair relationships across the justice system. Ryan Mears has systematically alienated every potential partner, whether that's the police here in our county, whether that's surrounding sheriffs, surrounding prosecutors, uh, even the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council. Um, this office cannot act as an island, and I would have the humility to work to repair those fences that have been damaged and those bridges that need to be rebuilt. Uh, you can't underestimate the need for a cooperative information sharing approach. As you said, I mean, crime does not fully respect county lines, although, as we know, sometimes when they are aware of it, they try to make sure they're on the right side of the county line. I remember back to you might remember this, the CVS robberies that we had decade plus ago, and that didn't get broken up until the feds started to take a hand in it. And that was these were organized rings, and it kind of mirrors some of what we're seeing now with these carjackings, where you make sure that the youngest offender is the one with the gun, and you make sure you're in Marion County, because if you cross over to another donut county, you're gonna face some stiff consequences. Um, and so, in some ways, it feels like deja vu. We're starting this again, and we need to uh, make sure that the juvenile system's back on track and that we're working cooperatively with all our partners in Central Indiana.
Phil Faust with us for a few more minutes on the program today as we talk about crime and violence and what he'd like to see it done as Marion County prosecutor. Phil, let's talk about gun-related violence. Obviously, the old line is guns don't kill people, bad people with guns kill other people. What is your approach to dealing with gun-related violence?
Yeah. Well, we do have firearm enhancements, we have gang enhancements, we have habitual offender enhancements. We also need to take very seriously filings with serious violent felons. Remember that, I mean, the underlying premise behind that law is that you have shown yourself to be so dangerous that we do not want to have you roaming around with a firearm afterwards. And this is, somebody was convicted of burglarizing a house or robbery or something like that. And those cases could be treated with a lot more scrutiny. And again, we need to be looking at the different sentencing enhancements that are applicable there. I don't think we, uh, I don't think every tool is being utilized as effectively as it can. In particular, when's the last time that you heard about a gang enhancement being pursued? It's not because we don't have gangs in Marion County, although they don't seem to be getting as much play in the news. But we do have gangs and cliques that certainly would qualify uh, for gang enhancements when we bring some of those people in, and we absolutely should, because they present an additional level of of danger beyond someone who's just doing a one-off crime on their own.
Phil, let me ask you, because obviously, in addition to deal with violent crime, rape, murder, robbery, you name it, the Mrs. Baker thing we all learned in law school, the analogy. There's also things like domestic violence that the prosecutor
Mhm.
has to deal with. Also, things like public integrity, public corruption. The prosecutor has to deal with. Uh, how do you approach those incidents, and also the fact of crime prevention by making sure people have things other to do than go break into my house?
Yeah. Okay. Three things there. Let me make sure I get them all.
No,
Uh,
no worries, my friend.
DV, public integrity, and prevention. Okay. Well, domestic violence cases are so tough, and it's important that we not ever let ourselves drop the ball on those because they can be so deadly so quickly. I remember, involvement in cases where, it's very clear um, what had happened, and the victim, there are, emotions at play and whatnot, and uh, suddenly becomes uncooperative again. And then the question is, what judgment are you going to exercise as a prosecutor? And I remember sitting in courtrooms talking with victims who, I mean, this wasn't like they just got yelling too loud and maybe both of them were pushing. This is one of them is swinging a baseball bat, and um, it's clear that this situation is not going to uh, turn into a better situation for, let's be candid, most usually for the woman involved. Uh, and so those are just cases that the prosecutor's office cannot allow themselves to take their eye off the ball there because they can prove deadly so quickly. Um, Public integrity. I got a lot to say about this. So um, I think it's worth, and I hope that you and others will press Ryan on this because, and let's go back to 2023, and in Broad Ripple, Ryan Mears, there's a bit of a crime wave at that time, right? And there were some uh, restaurants and bars speaking out, and Ryan Mears, for whatever reason, then tells one of his investigators to go look into Broad Ripple businesses. And as we've found in a recent court order, there was no other articulated really basis for that other than that they were perhaps near some violence. And that led to these tax cases, one of which recently was dismissed. Um, but I think the key takeaway there is that Ryan absolutely knows, because he did it, that he has the power to initiate an investigation. But then we fast forward 2025, right? He's telling every reporter, Fox News, you, and everyone else that public integrity is going to be a key source of investigation. He says he's going to be using his investigators like the feds do to pursue public corruption. And then we fast forward to this year, and Joe Hogsett with Indy Star and Mayor Indy's reporting has serious allegations, unproven, right? These are allegations in the news, not proven in the court of law, but serious allegations of public corruption, including that his fundraiser took a printed off list of preferred projects from donors and then gave them to the head of DPW. Now, what does Ryan Mears say to that? He says, my office is not an investigative body, and I have to wait for a report to come from police before I would start to investigate this. We'll compare that, Abdul, to the Broad Ripple case and what level of suspicion he had to start that case that he initiated on his own, right? There was no involvement from IMPD or the state police or the Department of Revenue first. He started that investigation. And here he won't start it against the mayor. Now, why is that? Well, it's because he's running for mayor himself, Abdul, and he knows that unfortunately, he's really boxed himself in here. If he goes after the mayor hard, then Joe Hogsett's team will be able to say, well, you're just trying to clear the field so that you don't have to oppose me in 2027 when I'm running for mayor. And if he doesn't, then unfortunately, we're stuck with a situation where no one believes that he can't investigate because we know he investigated the Broad Ripple case. And so we're left with this complete catch-22 where no matter what he does at this point, everyone's going to assume it's about politics. So what he needs to do is he needs to call for a special prosecutor, and he doesn't even have to admit that he was doing anything wrong, right? You can just say, for the appearance, to avoid the appearance of impropriety, right, which is the standard, we need to bring in a special prosecutor on both these cases, the Broad Ripple cases, as well as the Joe Hogsett administration cases, have them investigated so that people can have confidence that these cases aren't being handled differently because of politics. And that would go a long way towards restoring some trust in that office. I think the last thing, unless you wanted to ask anything about that, was the preventative question, right?
Yeah.
I think the prosecutor has their hands full, and their main role is to prevent crime through deterrence, right? And we can all think about and disagree about different programs and initiatives that might work out of a different office or a different agency, but we are not at a point in this county where we can take time and resources and personnel away from the core duty, again, of enforcing the law, seeking justice for victims, and protecting the public. If you go to the Indy.gov website right now and you scroll down, this is the public government website for the prosecutor, right? You're going to find 6 initiatives at least that have nothing to do with that core mission. And say, just, I think conservatively, if we reoriented half a dozen people from those often high-paying jobs that are doing nothing to do with prosecuting crime back towards prosecuting crime, then that's everyone's caseload that's lighter. That's more attention spent on every bond review, more attention spent on every trial, every sentencing, every post-conviction relief hearing. You can start to see an appreciable difference if more people are focused on what they're supposed to be focused on rather than political projects.
Well, if we've got a couple minutes left here, obviously, Marion County is a tough road to hoe for Republicans. The last Republican who won was Greg Ballard back in 2011.
Right.
How do you reach out to those moderates, those independents, maybe some of those more thoughtful Democrats who don't like the status quo? How do you reach them? How do you get a hold of them? How do you talk to them? How do you convince them to vote for you?
Exactly. Well, I tell you, I'm energized by the fact that as we talk to more and more people, this message resonates with them. Additionally, I think that not only truthfully, but convincingly, I can argue to Democrats, to independents who are worried about basic public safety, worried about getting this office back on track, that this is not an ideological swing in the other direction for me. So I don't hide from the fact that I'm Republican, and I don't hide from the fact that I'm conservative. But I think that I've demonstrated that I care more about this office and the work that it does than about partisan politics, because I not only served under Carl Brizzi, but remember, as an actual prosecutor, I served under Terry Curry, and then for a brief time under Ryan Mears. And if Terry Curry were still alive, or if Ryan had continued in his footsteps and just played it straight with that office, then, I'm still a good Republican. I probably wouldn't be out here campaigning for them or voting for them, but I wouldn't be upending my life to come oppose them. And I think that that hopefully speaks volumes to people who just care about this office being played straight. And I'll tell you, I think that public safety is foundational to everything else. So before we can have get to disagreements about education policy or amount of taxation, a variety of other things, we need to have a baseline level of public safety where people feel safe investing here rather than businesses fleeing from here, as we're seeing, where people feel safe raising their families here rather than, again, people uh, fleeing to the surrounding counties, and where people just generally feel uh, a a sense of that we're moving forward as opposed to backwards. And so I think that that's a message that hopefully people will believe me because it is heartfelt on my part. It's not about a partisan play. This office needs to be done very well, and needs to be done largely. I mean, obviously, it's a political office. There's an election for it, but it should not be partisan. It shouldn't matter, in my view, whether you're a D or an R if you're willing uh, to enforce the law and seek justice for victims and protect the public. But what we've had instead is Ryan using this in a long play for a bid for mayor. And I think your viewers and your listeners need to take stock of the fact, and I hope you'll be asking him: is he going to actually commit to uh, serving a term as prosecutor? Because we know that the worst kept secret in this town is that he plans to turn around in 2027. He's running in the same lane as Senator Hunley and hoping to beat her out for the left wing vote in the mayor's bid, and then to take on whether or not it's Bob Bosley or Joe Hogsett. But people have a right to know who's even running uh, really to be prosecutor. Who is he planning to try to install afterwards? And this is just a job that really should just be played straight. People need to have a prosecutor they can trust and believe in.
Final question for you, my friend. Your thoughts on organizations like the 10-Point Coalition, and the work that they do to help keep our community safe. I know I was forgetting to ask you something. I want to make sure I got that in before we close up our interview.
Yeah, I have had one good conversation with Reverend Harrison, and I appreciated what he had to say and um, what he had to share about the work that they're doing. Um, I think as part of what uh, I mentioned earlier, I do think it's an all hands on deck approach. So anyone who's willing to lend a hand towards public safety is worth listening to.
All right. Well, our guest in the program today for an extended amount of time has been Phil Foust. Phil is the Republican candidate for Marion County Prosecutor, taking on Ryan Mears this fall. So, Phil, sir, thank you very much for sitting down and chatting with us. I know we may not do this for a while. Hopefully, we can do it again real soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Abdul.